So the rule book says if you're in the market for a small city car and you want something that's luxurious and built at a premium, this Audi A1 might be the one you want. Unfortunately though, with the rising prices of new A1s and pretty much every other Audi product, it's starting to become unattainable. So let's review this car and see if it's worth that hefty price tag. But first off though, I want to give a big shout out to the owner of this car, Ella, for letting me review it. Like usual, I will leave her handles in the description box below. If you do have any questions on Audi A1 ownership, make sure to give her a message and a follow as well. Anyway, the model variant I have in front of me is the 1.6 diesel S-line, and the S-line package gives it some sportier features. So for example, you get a sportier front and rear bumper, better alloys and plenty of S-line badging around the car, and I must say it certainly makes a difference over the regular SE models. Smaller hatchbacks like these are often aimed at younger buyers, and for that reason the sharp exterior design works well on the A1. They've also carried this forward into the Mark II generation of Audi A1s, and I must say it worked pretty well. So far it's all positive news. However, we haven't got onto the price of it yet, which we now will do. Currently, at the time we're filming this car on the second-hand market, it's worth anything between 7.5 to 9 grand, which, to put that into perspective, a similar Fiesta with a similar engine is worth around half the price. I've got to admit, that's pretty diabolical. And now we move on to the interior of the 2013 Audi A1 S-line. And I emphasize on the S-line bit because that trim level gets you Bluetooth, a nice leather-wrapped multi-function steering wheel, and part leather seats, but I'm not too sure why it's not full leather. Pesky Audi right there. On the multi-function steering wheel with plenty of buttons, you may have already spotted there's a little image of an asterisk. What this button does is give you the option to personalize it. So if you go into the Audi's MMI system, select car, it'll give you 3 options to choose from: traffic program on and off, switch radio, or skip forward. I think it's a pretty handy feature. In terms of storage space, I think there's plenty in this car. The glove box is huge and it gives you this pen holder thing, which is quite traditional of Audi. The door bins are also very big as well. You don't really need any bigger door bins than that. But the thing that annoys me, and I know it's not storage related, is this pop-up screen. I personally think it should pop up automatically like in the previous generation Audi A6 and Audi A7. As for the rear seats, well, initial impressions, you would think there's loads of space in the back of it because there's alright knee room and you could rest your elbow on this little ledge. However, when I try to sit up straight, I whack my head right up against that roof line, and I'm 5'11", so it's not really that comfortable. Anyhow, let's go for a drive. Okay, so as for the drive, compared to its competitors, it is really smooth and comfortable. The steering wheel as well, it's perfectly sized, so it's not too big, not too small. In terms of the gear shift and the clutch pedal, it is super light. It slips straight into gear without problem. But side note, in terms of adding to that comfortability, which this car's aim is, it doesn't really come with a armrest as standard. It's an optional extra on Audis, unfortunately. So on the second-hand market, it's actually quite hard to find a Audi A1 with an armrest. A cool feature which I didn't mention during the main part of the review is when you open the boot, there's actually boot lights at either side of the boot opening, which is perfect because it illuminates at night for you to pop in stuff to your boot. I don't really see the point of it, but it's just there and it's an extra feature and it's pretty cool. So this car's done 83,000 miles and it still feels as fresh as you like. The interior wear is pretty much minimal, and that's fantastic because you don't usually see that in cars like these. A lot of people moan about build quality, this, that, but Audi have really actually built a solid car. When I indicate in my previous review of a Fiat 500, every time I indicated, the stalk felt like it was just going to rip off, but in this car it actually feels pretty premium. You could also get these cars in a S-tronic gearbox, the automatic gearbox. I don't think I would recommend it. It's pointless. The manual feels amazing anyway. You're better off sticking with a manual on the low end spectrum. So the road tax on this car is 0. You don't pay any road tax at all. And the fact it's a diesel means you'll be using minimal fuel as well. Although I'm not really sure this car suits a diesel. It doesn't really rev that high, up to 5,000 RPM. You're probably better off going with a, I would say, 1.4 petrol TFSI or the 1.2s. Don't get me wrong, these cars are worth quite a lot on the market. Like I said in the reviews, 7.5 to 9 grand. And for a first car, that's a lot of money. Insurance, a lot of people, you know, think this car is going to cost a lot in terms of insurance, but it actually isn't. I would say tops 1.9k. The S-line trim level does make a significant amount of difference. It's even lowered as well by a few millimeters, and the seating position is quite low as well compared to a Mini or Citroen DS3 or Corsa. This 1.6 diesel is pumping out around 106 brake horsepower, and the petrols are in that similar band as well. Maybe I think the 1.4s are around 125, not too sure, but it's not a lot of power. But I've got to say, it is a very, very planted ride. It does feel like it wants to be chucked into corners. I just can't imagine what the S1's like if this is quite nippy and go-kart-esque. The A1 also has quite a big community, so if you ever do go on to mod your car, I'm sure there'll be loads of help and advice on the internet for you. I've also noticed in this car you get LED interior lights, and I'm not too sure the other competitors get that feature. But it does make a difference at night when you get out your car and it's illuminated white. It's a brighter light, and also when it brakes, it won't brake as often as a halogen bulb. In terms of visibility in this car, for the 3-door, it's absolutely fantastic. The front field of view is great. I can see everything out of it. The mirrors are perfectly sized, not too big, not too small. Again, with the steering wheel, it's just refined. It's a very refined car. I've driven the Mini Cooper, and it's very narrow. The front screen feels like I'm you know, cramped in. It doesn't feel as spacious as this car. In terms of the seats, even though they are part leather, part, is it cloth? Not too sure. They do hug you in very well. They've got amazing side bolstering, and they do feel very, very sporty. My only real big niggles in the interior of the Audi A1 is the circular rear view mirror. That's just me, that's personal preference, and the little pop-up infotainment system, because you're paying a lot of money for this car. You need to expect quality, and a little plastic pop-up thing is not counting that as quality by Audi. But they fixed that in the new Audi A1. Just had some ex-Audi A1 owners speak to me whilst I was doing the car review. They were quite old, elderly people, and they did say they preferred the Audi A1 over the Mini. And that's quite interesting. I'd turn idle, the diesel engines are quite loud. It does sound like a bit of a truck, but that goes for every single diesel car out there. So that's the review of the 2013 Audi A1. Overall, what do I really think? Well, although it's really relaxing to drive and extremely comfortable, it just doesn't give you that excitement factor a hatchback should do. Don't get me wrong, it's definitely on par with a Mini Cooper and much, much better than a Citroen DS3. But if you are slightly more foolish and right foot happy, there are better options out there for you. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.